Well, it's a Tuesday, and you know what that means, right? This dumpster fire of a show that's been added to Ryan Murphy's catalogue that contains a poor story, mediocre acting despite an A-list cast, and writing that makes you feel like you're going in every single direction is back. And with its return, the 5th episode has now been released. Whilst Kim Kardashian's role has been significantly reduced in this show when compared to the first 2 episodes, that hasn't really saved it in the slightest, and if I'm being honest, the show is just getting worse and worse the more it goes on. So with that, I wanted to share exactly why this show is deserving of the low rating and criticisms that it's been getting. Here is why All's Fair episode 5 is so bad. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The women in this show are so unlikable. When I look at what the purpose of this show was about when the first couple of episodes aired, it seemed like it was focused on how women get the hard end of the deal when it comes to divorce proceedings, and it also felt like it was about how women can be treated badly in the workplace, especially in places like law firms, which is why Allura, Emerald, and Liberty left the one that they were at before. So I thought the story was going to go down a women empowerment route, which it seemed like they were doing at the very beginning, whilst also slamming men just a little bit too. However, over the course of the last couple of episodes, and especially within this episode, I kind of feel like it's gone a bit in the other direction, and I don't know whether Murphy thinks that this is the right thing to do and he thinks it leans into the message more, but I really don't think it does. Take the case in this episode as an example. There was a lady who was looking to divorce her husband and essentially remove the prenup because he had Alzheimer's and he no longer recognized her. She basically positioned the whole situation as it now being her time to have some freedom, and as she said herself, as long as I'm married, I'm not free. I want to travel like he did. Whilst I haven't been in the situation that the character's in, so I don't truly understand the mindset, I just thought it made the character come across as a heartless woman that was looking to abandon her husband when he truly needed her most. In sickness and in health, as they say when you get married, and she was jumping ship because she wanted to go travelling. There was also a line of dialogue that Liberty said where she mentioned how the prenup is hurtful to the women and bleeds into everything else, and how they essentially spend a lot of their time tearing those documents to pieces in making them redundant. But in this instance, it wasn't really being hurtful to the women, she was the one being hurtful. Then when looking at the likes of Milan and Allura, they're both carrying Chase's child, and okay, eventually Milan told Chase that she was going to be having a baby that was his, but she didn't initially want to tell him, and she also went on to say how he wasn't going to be involved in the slightest and that it was only hers. So it didn't seem like the nicest thing to do. Plus, as well as that, Allura is carrying his baby following her trying to impregnate herself with the eggs that they got frozen together, and he's none the wiser about it. Honestly, I don't know whether Murphy is trying to position this as women empowerment, but to me, it's just coming across as sneaky behavior which is painting the characters in a terrible light that makes them extremely unlikable. Then when I look at other actions that have taken place in the show, such as Dina kissing a man that wasn't her dying husband, confessing to him what she did and him not getting mad or being annoyed with her in the slightest, it was something that really did just confuse me. Because when I saw the trailers, it felt like it was all about making the women that were at the core of the show these likable characters that had a sense of empowerment, but I don't think it's quite working, as I'm not rooting for any of them. The writing is all over the place. From a narrative structure perspective, I feel like this episode was quite literally all over the place. Don't get me wrong, I thought Sarah Paulson's character Car had an interesting story with the battling of being a working mum and wanting to be there for her child, but feeling like she wasn't. But then outside of that, I thought the episode had a bit too much going on and was a bit all over the place. For example, there was that utterly weird and completely pointless scene between Car and Chase when it looked like they were gonna get it on. But instead, she washed his hair and it had no relevance to the story whatsoever, other than providing Car with somebody new that she'd be working with following the whole drink driving thing. There was also some awful dialogue in this scene, especially when Car said, "Baby needs to wash it, baby needs to dry it." It was cringeworthy stuff at its finest. Plus, the murder of Lloyd Walton was put on the back burner until the end of the episode, despite it dominating the previous one, so I thought that was a little strange. Alongside that, there was the whole prenup discussion that Liberty and Dr. Reggie were having, and do you know what this episode made me realize? Liberty is the most pointless character in the show, and she doesn't actually need to be in it. We rarely see her do anything of any value to the story or progress it forward in any way whatsoever. Plus, as I've said in the past, Naomi Watts is probably one of the worst acted characters in the show anyway, because the role just really doesn't suit her, so she definitely didn't need to take this. I also found the whole bit about what Carrington's daughter was going to be writing about a bit exploitative and uncomfortable to watch. Carr wore gloves because of the scars on her hands and her arms, and she was essentially egging her daughter on to write about the fact that she worries about what would happen if she went too far one time as a sympathy essay in order to get into the school that she wanted to go to. So from a tonal perspective, it just felt a little bit weird. I would say that ever since Kim Kardashian has had less screen time, I don't roll my eyes quite as much, but there was one moment in particular in this episode where they rolled so far back I genuinely thought I could see my brain. Why did anybody think that this was the right outfit to put her in when it came to being work attire? She's wearing what looks like a dinner dress with a blazer thrown over the top to simply give it that office look. It's ridiculous the outfits that have been chosen for this show, because not only was it last week where Kim Kardashian had 7 different outfits in the episode, but none of them ever looked like work attire or the appropriate clothes that a lawyer would wear. When looking at the writing, I'd say the opening scene was probably the best scene in the episode because of the mother-daughter relationship that we saw developing, and the fact that it had Sarah Paulson in, who's the best actor in the show. The character was almost animated and a caricature version of herself last week, but this one did rein it in a bit, which I'm pleased with. Although they did make out like she sued her brother's husband for negligence for not having her child's backup inhaler, which did seem a bit ridiculous. Then I'd also say that the final scene was the next strongest. This is because we saw the deterioration of Doug and Dina's emotional response to finding out that he was soon to be dying. Overall though, the writing in this show isn't the best, and as a viewer, I feel myself being thrown from pillar to post for drama's sake, and it's just not that enjoyable, and it also means that the story ultimately gets compromised. I'm now at the point where I don't truly know what this show is actually about, who it's for, and why it's even being made, because they're making these characters that I feel the show is trying to champion extremely unlikable. One other thing that I have to call out in this show is the music that ends up playing under the scenes and often builds towards the cut to black for dramatic effect. It feels so formulaic in its approach, and it's got the corniness and feel of what often gets heard in a Lifetime movie or show. Whenever it kicks in, it makes me cringe just that little bit harder, and it feels so tonally off because I'm watching something that should be on the Lifetime channel but with the budget of a movie. So it doesn't quite go in the slightest. Honestly, when watching the show, I'm not surprised with the backlash that it gets. The dialogue is weak, the performances are pretty bad despite having relatively seasoned professionals, which, in my opinion, just brings to light the poor writing and direction. And the story just feels like it's of the quality of Hallmark value, but it's not Hallmark or Lifetime. It was made with a $70 million budget. I definitely don't think this is money well spent, and it's going to be one of those shows where it fades into obscurity. It's just really bad. It's not even bad to the point where it becomes watchable or will go down amongst cult viewers, so it's the kind of bad where it just becomes forgettable, which is the worst type. So, there you have it, why All's Fair Episode 5 is so bad. I'm covering All's Fair every week and seeing just how far I can get before it breaks me, so if you want to come along for the ride, then hit subscribe. What did you think of this episode? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.